I just got, out of a meeting with a client. We were talking a little bit about cryptocurrencies towards the end of the client meeting. Just like, some friendly talk. It's truly what's been going on in Bitcoin really has you, fooled. Um, Basically, what's happened recently is that the country of China came out and basically said they were going to devalue their currency again, as they usually do, at least 2, 3 times a year. We hear that from them. What that did was cause a flood of people, a flood of Chinamen going into Bitcoin, seeing it as, something that they'll be able to basically hold for a little bit of while relative to their currency. They buy now, then when their currency cuts, they buy their currency back, and they capture the difference of their cash. And it's a strategy that people are using to kind of deal with how their communist government is devaluing their currency in order to keep their export prices very low. But that may be something that works for people in China, but the problem that other people are having, like my client over here, is that he still thinks, there's still some advantages to mining. He's been mining this new ZCash coin, which, for all intensive purposes, is not going to get him anywhere. He's using this service that basically is mining the ZCash and converting it directly into Bitcoin for him. He's getting paid out in Bitcoin. He has a long position on Bitcoin, so he doesn't mine it. But the problem is, when I look at the math, it just simply doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. What he's getting ripped off by mining. And what I mean by that is, let's take his system. He has a system that has two 280Xs, I think, R9 280X NVIDIA cards. The NVIDIA graphics card that he have is getting him somewhere around 30 solutions a second when it comes to mining this. What in turn that means for him is that he's making about $5 a day right now in maybe a little less, even $3 with those video cards. $5 with his CPU combined is getting about $5 a day. When I did the math for him, it really came out ridiculous. Regardless of how much you think Bitcoin is going to go up in value, you're getting ripped off by mining, because the fees that you're paying in electric far exceed the yield that you're getting from mining. This was not the case 3-4 years ago when it became popular, and so many people jumped on the bandwagon that, of course, the basic rules of supply and demand. The more demand that there is, the better it is. But you had the same demand in actual Bitcoin. You just had a whole lot of supply of miners coming in to try to use their computer, thinking that they can make money doing nothing by just pressing a button and letting the software do its work. I looked at, even if we were to look at the Bitcoin returns over the long term, even if he thought it was going to go to $1,000, so we looked at the returns and we came up with the conclusion that if he is to take the cash that he's paying for his electric bill right now, for mining, and buy Bitcoins directly, daily, just put $10 into it, and then it did go up to $1,000 over a 1 month period, he would accumulate, about twice as much, in not only in a return, but his principal would be twice as much. So he's losing more than half. He would basically, the price of the Bitcoin would have to double right now for him to break even on his mining, which is kind of pathetic. The common sense would tell you that you can just go out and buy some Bitcoin. There's no reason that you should, if you want to invest, that you should spend so much money on electricity. So I don't understand why anyone is mining this Zcash. In the beginning there was a lot of hype. It came out, it was 5 Bitcoins per Zcash, and that drove really a lot of people to think that these Zcash is going to be worth millions, but since then it's declined. It's lost about 80% of its value, and it's continuing to decline. You need to understand why it was so expensive in the beginning. It was so expensive because of simple supply and demand. There weren't any of those Z coins out there. The float was very low. When you have only 1,000 Z coins and millions of Bitcoins, of course the Z coin is going to be worth a lot. But with all the miners coming on board and now the supply increasing dramatically, the price is plummeting at the same rate that the supply is increasing. So really, what you're doing by mining it is just losing a lot of money. You're ensuring some value for the people that are long the position, but at the end of the day, it's not much value. It's just it's going to be just like all the other altcoins. There's no altcoin that's come out that's done nearly as well as Bitcoin. In the short term, yes, but in the long term, they all just collapse and become worth only a few dollars, if that. So what you need to understand is that you're making a big mistake by mining still in 2016 and 2017, especially with the new proof of work that's associated with Ethereum and or Ethereum, whatever you want to call it, and the Zcash, makes it more difficult for miners with these ASICs, or these devices, these electronic devices developed especially for making massive amounts of calculations for mining while reducing electricity costs. Those are not profitable any longer as well, simply because the cost of electric that you're paying right now to mine with those may be very low. That's true, but the return you're getting is even lower. And if you take the difference between the spread between what you pay in electric and the yield that you're getting, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, the only way this makes sense to mine is if the computers you're accessing are free for you and the electricity is free as well, and you're ripping somebody else off. But that's not, that's not creating wealth for anyone. What that's doing is just you stealing from either your parents or someone else's electricity bill. If you're renting a commercial space, and the commercial space includes, as much electricity as you want for a flat rate per square foot, then you have a chance, then it might still be possible to yield a little bit of a return. But when you take into the price of computer hardware in 2016, 2017, it's not going to yield you anything. Of course, you would, just like I told you before, you would be a lot better off just buying Bitcoins if you think Bitcoins are going to go in value. And of course, the bet that miners are making is that Bitcoins are going to increase in value dramatically by buying the Zcash. Obviously, the Zcash is not going to increase in price dramatically. The Zcash has been plummeting, and it's going to continue to do so for the immediate future. The only benefit that there is from this Zcoin or Zcash is basically the fact that transactions and the identity of whoever is making the transaction can be heavily encrypted. And because they're encrypted, it would be very difficult for someone who doesn't have that encryption key to be able to hack it and figure out, who made what transactions. So it's very beneficial for people in criminal enterprises. But is that going to make it more valuable than Bitcoins? No, it's absolutely not. You need to understand that the reason Bitcoin is valuable is the brand. Bitcoin is the original, and just like anything in society, it's very difficult to replace an original brand with a copycat and expect the copycat to become worth more. And there are very rare occurrences of that, but that's not something that's going to happen in cryptocurrencies, and that's because the people that have the biggest investments in the crypto are the ones that were in early. The ones that were in early were in Bitcoin. So you're not going to see that happen. You're not going to see the Zcoin, triple, quadruple, and become worth 100 times more in price for it to pay off for you mining. You could still buy it on exchanges. Just go and buy Bitcoins if you think, if you're long cryptocurrencies. It's really right now the best thing for you to do. If you would have bought some at $200, you could have tripled, almost quadrupled your money. And that's not the case. That's not the case with mining. With mining, you're taking a loss right off the bat. You're taking a huge loss right off the bat, 60, 70, 80% of what you're spending is lost. It's gone into thin air. It disappears. And you would need to wait so long, and so much would have to go your way in order for you to make a return on it, that you're just, it's stupid. It's just stupid. Why are you mining this ZCash thing with your computer also? What happens when your computer dies? Then you have no more video card in your computer. You have to go out and buy a new video card. All the Bitcoin that you got, is going to be worth nothing when you have to go out and buy a new computer. You got $50 worth of Bitcoin, and you think, one day that's going to be worth thousands. But now you lost more than that on buying new hardware for your computer. So what are you benefiting from? What are you benefiting from? You're not benefiting from anything. It's just not a good idea. It's not a good idea. The entire, the thing that made Bitcoin originally enticing was the fact that it wasn't controlled by government. And the government can't necessarily, no matter how much they try to regulate it, there's no specific protocol they can ban or that they can control in order, like they tried to do earlier on with torrents. Torrents had its own protocol. If the government really wanted to, they could block ISPs from allowing you to conduct downloading and uploading of torrents. They cannot do that with Bitcoin. So that was really the benefit to it in the beginning, was that there was a currency out there that wasn't controlled by any government. But you need to realize that already has been out there for thousands of years. It's called gold and silver. And like you can see, Bitcoin prices are up. They're up in part due to the political instability that exists, but that volatility is also existing in gold and silver. So there's just no use for it aside from the transactions that you're making on Bitcoin occurring rather quickly. But that's not the case anymore. A $5 transaction could take so many hours to be verified. It's ridiculous. There's no benefit. It's not like this stuff is instantaneous. You have a cap of about 50,000 transactions a second or something like that, when you have Visa and MasterCard doing 30, 40, 50 times that. So there's no market. There's no way this thing is going to be adopted massively by the public. It's just it was smart in the beginning, and it had that value there in the beginning when those transactions could be verified very quickly. But that's not the case anymore. So a lot of the value, the intrinsic value that was associated with cryptocurrency when they first came out, is now gone. You need to understand that. So it doesn't have the same type of value that a regular currency has. It will never be as widely adapted as a government-backed currency. And there are a lot of reasons for that. You're looking too much at the upside. You're not realistically thinking about the downsides, and you're not thinking about your electric bill. And that's what you really need to consider. Now, some of you don't pay electricity bills. If you don't, and you have the computer equipment sitting around, it might be a good choice. You might want to do that. But you have to understand, at the end of the day, someone is paying the electricity bill. It might not be you, but it's definitely our environment that's suffering. This country in large part still uses coal for generating electricity. So you're using coal, and you're creating all this more with one computer than your whole house uses, more electricity in 1 month from your computer than your whole house uses. That's just asinine. And if you think this is really a strategy that is going to work for mass adoption, you're completely wrong. There's no way Bitcoin can be massively adopted. At this point, it's just a commodity. It's a commodity because it has its name. It was the original one. And because there are so many altcoins, it makes sense that people would want the original and not a copycat. So you need to think about that before you start mining the Zcash, before you get back into cryptocurrencies. You need to think about all these things, okay? Just think about it before you get that $300 electric bill and realize you only made $30 worth of Bitcoin.